Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose, and I do have another Activision Blizzard update for you all today as things continue to heat up. The CMA did announce the completely expected second phase of their investigation, and I do want to be very clear about that because there does seem to be some confusion here. This absolutely was 100% expected to happen, but what wasn't expected is this very public back and forth between Sony and Microsoft. You don't usually see this from big corporations, but Jim Ryan, PlayStation boss Jim Ryan, appears to be desperate here, throwing shade at Microsoft in the hopes to stop or slow down this deal. He's trying to get these regulators on his side, and it's just this whole thing by this point. So we're going to go over that, as well as why Microsoft stood their ground against the CMA's request to alleviate any kind of anti-competitive concerns. Also, we did get a little bit of an update on that rumored Metroid Prime remaster. Now, I know some fans out there are a little upset it didn't appear at the Nintendo Direct, and some may have even lost hope in its existence, but well, maybe there's a little bit more to this after all. Before we get into any of that though, as always, show your support by hitting those buttons below. If I say so myself, this here is the place to be if you're into gaming or gaming news, so make sure to subscribe and ring that bell. With that said, let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with Konami out of all companies. They have been making a little bit of a comeback here recently, which is nice to see, I'd say, and even though we're still waiting for the much anticipated Silent Hills news, they did, however, announce a very welcome collection of games today. This is for Suikoden 1 and 2, which are now set to get remasters in 2023 and will release for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Steam, and yes, even Xbox. These are just yet more good Japanese games for Xbox. This is something that they've really improved in. So either way though, it does look like Konami, they're doing this the right way by bringing these games to all platforms. But I mean, these are some of the most beloved JRPGs to exist, period, especially when it comes to Suikoden 2. That game specifically is often ranked among the very best JRPGs ever, and I think their art style has aged incredibly well. I mean, if you look at these games all these years later, they still look absolutely fantastic all these years later, which is a real testament to how good that original art style was. Either way, though, Konami did say that these games include graphical improvements with both their pixel sprites as well as their effects. It has new character drawings, sound improvement, and then last but not least, they are boasting game system improvements with things like dialogue log, auto battles, and then double speed battles. So this actually sounds pretty good on paper, and I mean, I think it looks good so far, and again, it's nice to see Konami just kind of put in an effort here. They are also rumored to have some other games in development, such as a Metal Gear Solid collection. I'd love to see that, and then maybe some new Silent Hill games as well. So hey, welcome back, Konami. Now, one hot topic that's creating a big stir as of recent is with Halo Infinite's local co-op cancellation. This has left a lot of fans very upset. This did come as a surprise for much of the community, as it is a big part of Halo's history, especially with that original trilogy. And after Halo 5 didn't have it, 343, they made it their public mission to have this feature in all of their future titles. Well, I mean, I guess that promise was short-lived, but because it was promised to fans, it makes its cancellation even more blasphemous. To make matters worse, there is a glitch within Halo Infinite that actually allows local co-op to work. So you can, as of this moment, get that working if you want to jump through some hoops. The big question then, though, is, well, how does it actually run? Well, Digital Foundry, they decided to play through some of its campaign with that glitch running, and their findings was rather interesting. So according to them, their experience wasn't perfect per se, as they ran into a few problems, like falling through the floor as an example, but for the most part, it works, and they say it's a blast playing through it. So this kind of begs the question, if it works, even if not perfect per se, why exactly did 343 cancel it? Now, my personal guess here is that they couldn't find ways to perfect it, and there's also the possibility that there's a lot more bugs than what Digital Foundry found in that specific video. I mean, the thing about that is if they found some problems in their short run with it, then I can only imagine there's a lot more than just that. Even then, though, the point kind of stands. The fact that it is in a workable state It is incredibly disappointing that 343 gave up on it after promising the community this feature years and years ago. I do hope they can come back to this in the future and ultimately deliver on that promise, even if that means ditching the Xbox One version. There's a lot of speculation that maybe that Xbox One version is ultimately the problem, and who knows, it might be. And we did just see CD Projekt Red do that with Cyberpunk, where they ditched those last generation versions. And I mean, maybe Halo Infinite will have to go down that direction sometime down the road if they want to get this working, but that's the thing. I mean, right now, they're just kind of saying it's over, it's done. So it's definitely disappointing, and I can understand why fans are so upset over this situation. Let me know how you feel about all of this, though, in the comments below. Let's go and get to that Activision Blizzard acquisition update, though, as the UK regulator, the CMA, did confirm that they're moving on to the second phase of their investigation, which means that they're taking a closer look to see if there's any kind of problem here. Now, this was first reported earlier in the month, where they sent a request to Microsoft, giving them a chance to kind of alleviate any of their concerns. And, well, Microsoft decided not to offer anything at this time, and you might wonder why. Well, that's actually because Microsoft felt that it was going into that second phase regardless of what they offered the CMA at this time. So they don't want to make any immediate commitments. More or less, this was always to be expected. We are seeing the exact same thing happen with the FTC, the European investigations, and so on and so forth. You have to keep in mind, this is nearly a $70 billion acquisition, so because of its size alone, it will without a doubt receive extensive investigations. As of this moment, though, nothing necessarily points to any kind of trouble for Microsoft. Now, that could change in the future, but again, as of this moment, there's no concern from Microsoft's point of view, and they remain committed to the deal finishing up by the end of June 2023. Despite all this being expected, though, and it's basically following the same timeline as some of their other investigations, the CMA investigation is receiving more coverage than we have typically seen so far. And there's really two main reasons for this. One is because the CMA themselves, for whatever reason, is making their findings very public. I mean, in their original announcement, they posted a tweet and emojis and everything. I do find that rather strange. I don't believe we've seen that with any other regulators, but okay, I guess. The other part here, though, is because Sony is also being very public about their displeasure in this acquisition. And after the CMA announced they're moving on to Phase 2, Sony came out and responded, and yeah, let's just go and check out their statement here. So this was posted over on GameIndustry.biz, where they said, by giving Microsoft control of Activision games like Call of Duty, this deal would have major negative implications for gamers and the future of the gaming industry. We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality gaming experience, and we appreciate the CMA's focus on protecting gamers. Now, honestly, I find this statement to be just absurd. And I know a lot of other gamers do as well, because it really just comes off as Sony crying wolf. What Sony's doing here is clearly trying to rally these regulators and paint themselves as victims. But the problem here is that the evidence tells a completely different story. See, the thing is that these regulators, more than likely, probably don't know too much about the game industry. I mean, they're learning a lot right now, but the thing is us as gamers, we're a little bit more privy to what's happening here. And we all know that the same things that Sony's whining about, they do themselves. I mean, what's so ironic about this entire situation is that while Sony is crying about Call of Duty specifically, and they're concerned on if Microsoft will make it exclusive sometime in the future, even if just with content parity, but then at the same time, Sony comes out and announces exclusive PlayStation content for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in the form of its beta access. Like, how tone deaf do you have to be to cry about exclusive content and then offer it yourself? PlayStation is also doing the exact same thing with Hogwarts Legacy. They're doing the same thing with Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Remake. That is a beloved franchise. They're doing the same thing with Forspoken, and the list just goes on and on and on. Where's the CMA protecting us gamers from all of that? Sony's been doing this stuff for years, and now they find umbrage with Microsoft fighting back. The truth is that Sony just does not want Microsoft to compete. It is absolutely ridiculous. And I think that that's one of the reasons Microsoft is so confident with these investigations. They know they have the evidence to show that not only is this not a problem, but Sony's doing exactly what they're complaining about, which is not a good look. And I think the regulators ultimately will see that. On top of that, they're acquiring studios as well. Sony just upped the price of the PlayStation 5. They increased the price in their games. So, I mean, when you really start to look into things, this is not a company that is the victim in any shape or form. They're so confident in their market lead that they, in ways, are taking advantage of their very own consumers. Nintendo's not doing things like this, Microsoft's not doing things like this, but Sony is, and that's because they're confident with their position in the market. In that way, Sony kind of did all this to themselves, and, they've given Microsoft a lot of evidence to kind of work with here. And I really don't see how regulators can look at any of this and make a case against Microsoft. And that's why I personally believe, regardless of how messy things get, this deal will ultimately make it through. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Regulators don't have to like acquisitions of this size. They might be skeptical and everything, but they can't just make up their own rules. And Microsoft, they know this. Now, there might be some concessions made as they kind of work together through these more in-depth investigations. That's what these second phases are a little bit more for. Microsoft will absolutely respond to things from this point forward, but we'll see where all of this takes us. Speaking of that, though, Microsoft actually did respond to Sony's response, so let's just go check out what they had to say as well. They did say that it makes zero business sense for Microsoft to remove Call of Duty from PlayStation given its market-leading console position. So this here is just them once again reiterating they have no intentions on taking Call of Duty off of PlayStation. And honestly, I don't believe that they will. I believe Microsoft will treat Call of Duty like Minecraft, but because Microsoft doesn't want to give Sony that guarantee, that perpetual agreement to confirm it will forever be available on PlayStation, Sony feels a little uneasy about their public responses here. What Sony wants is to have all of that in writing. And who knows, that might happen at some point as we get further into these investigations. But right now, Microsoft seems very comfortable, very confident about their overall situation. So per usual, we'll just have to kind of see how all of this plays out behind the scenes, because I am sure we will get plenty more updates on this moving forward. As always, though, I will keep you up to date as we do get more information, which we absolutely will. Probably a lot more, actually. So again, hit those buttons below if you want to keep up with all of the Activision Blizzard news. Now, we did also get an update for that Metroid Prime remaster that we've heard about for pretty much 2 years straight, maybe even a little bit longer than that. This year, though, it felt like things were different. It just sounded like this was a guarantee to be announced at that Nintendo Direct. And then when we got nothing, there obviously was a lot of fans that was upset about this, and those fans, they kind of lost faith that this remaster, remake, or whatever it is, even exists at all. Well, interestingly enough, Direct Feed Games, aka Nate the Hate, responded to some of that skepticism online and actually doubled down on that original leak. So this all started with the question, if Retro Games isn't working on a Metroid Prime remaster, what have they been up to since Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze? It's been a little while since that game did release after all. And well, as you can see here, Direct Feed Games responded by saying this. After Tropical Freeze release, Retro started work on a new IP that was cancelled. The company then started work on Metroid Prime for the Switch. Work finished on Prime Remaster in mid-2021. Now busy on Metroid Prime 4. He then later on clarified that it is still coming and that he has proof of its existence. So, I mean, you can just kind of take this as you will. On one side, he is doubling down on his stance that this game does exist, which I think is rather interesting. But at the same time, after we've heard about these leaks for a few years now, I do understand why fans are skeptical. What I will say, and this is just my own 2 cents here, one thing that we do know about Nintendo is that they're infamous for holding on to completed games. We've heard that they've been doing this for a while, but I think especially when it comes to this year, that was pretty much confirmed. They did do that with Xenoblade 3, swapping it out with Splatoon 3 after that game got delayed. So there is a possibility that Metroid Prime Remaster exists, And now Nintendo is just trying to navigate their schedule for when it's best to release it. 2022 is rather busy for them after all. You do have Splatoon 3, which released this month, and that game's been having a lot of success. Then in October, you have Bayonetta 3 and Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. And then in November, you have the big one being Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So December would be that one month where they could possibly drop it, but they could also just as easily decide that they have enough for this year and that they'll just save Metroid for a slower period down the road. Another possibility here is that they want to get Metroid Prime 2 and 3 ready so they can just kind of drop them all together. From what we're currently hearing, Prime 2 and 3 are not receiving the same remake treatment, but they do want to release those as well, which would be smart heading into Prime 4. You know, these games were a little overlooked in the past. Hopefully that won't be the case this time. But what they could do is release all of them together and charge that premium $60 price tag, which could be more successful for them if they release all 3 of them together. Now that's just speculation on my part though, but I did find it rather interesting that Nate the Hate here is kind of doubling down on his previous leak. I'd still take this with a grain of salt though. I mean, you never really know when it comes to these leaks, but let me know what you all think about this. Do you think this remaster exists or not? Let me know in the comments below. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day though, where I asked you all, what letter grade would you give the Xbox TGS Showcase? I mean, as you can see here, most of you all did like this event, with 15% of you giving it an A, 51% being the majority gave it a B, 22% of you gave it a C, 6% a D, and then 6% an F. And yeah, I am completely with you all on this one. I thought this was a very, very good showcase. Especially, I mean, if you like Xbox Game Pass. As you all know, I'm a big Xbox Game Pass supporter myself, and that's really what this showcase was all about. They brought over several big and beloved Japanese games over to Xbox Game Pass. On top of that, they announced Deathloop. The much speculated Deathloop is heading over to Xbox Game Pass on September 20th. So for those 2 reasons alone, I think this showcase was great, but it also kind of gave, I think, Xbox fans even more confidence in Xbox's output for Japanese games, for Xbox's output in fighting games specifically. These are games that a lot of Xbox gamers out there have been requesting for Xbox to support more and more, and you're really seeing that commitment pay off this generation. I mean, they've talked a lot about it in the past, but now you are absolutely seeing that commitment pay off. So for those reasons, I think that this was a great showcase. And I'm with you all. I'm going to give this one a B myself. It didn't exactly have much in the way of completely new games here, but again, if you like fighting games, you like Japanese games, you like Xbox Game Pass, you gotta love what you're seeing here. And it's really interesting to me because, I mean, coming into this week, I really wasn't expecting the Xbox TGS Showcase to be one of the better events of the week. I mean, there's a lot of events happening this week, but ultimately, I really do feel like the Xbox TGS Showcase was one of the better events. So yeah, kudos to Xbox for putting an event like this together and just further hyping up that Xbox crowd. Let's kind of take a look at some of you all's comments though, and kind of see what you all specifically thought here. As you can see, Sailor Mercury said, really loved it. So cool to see Ni no Kuni shadow dropped on Game Pass. Also, the sequel coming next year. Glad to see Japanese support for Xbox continuing to grow it. Yes, I am completely with you here. And for those that haven't played Ni no Kuni, definitely check that game out. It is a very, very good title with that timeless art style and just fun overall gameplay. I really like that game personally. I'm glad to see it come over to Game Pass. Also, Evad, I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, but he says, very solid show, but not a ton of new reveals, so it's a solid B for me. As an Xbox gamer that loves Japanese content, I'm finally getting content that everybody else has enjoyed, but I want to see Xbox take that next big step and get back to Japanese exclusive content like Lost Odyssey and partnerships with people like Ichigaki and Team Ninja. And yeah, I think that that's a very good point as well. I mean, we did see some of those Japanese exclusives during the Xbox 360 generation, and I am a big fan of Lost Odyssey myself. I actually think it's secretly one of the best Final Fantasies that are available to this day. I would love to see a Lost Odyssey sequel, but in order to do that, I think they'll have to get Mistwalker on board for that, and I'm not entirely sure if they're as interested in console development as they used to be. Right now, I just kind of want to see Fantasia make its way over to consoles instead of being an Apple Arcade exclusive. Hey, it is what it is at the end of the day. Anyways, though, I thought you all made some really great points in the comments, and I do agree with you all on its overall grade. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.